What I'm going to talk about is the intersection between the law and your investment property. So whether you are an investor who owns and holds real property and leases it to other people, or whether you are an agent who sells property to people who hold property and lease it to others, it's important for you to know where these lines are. And one analogy that I think fits perfectly with this is that of marriage. You see, when we're landlords, the relationship between a landlord and their tenant is very similar to a marriage. And some of them last for a very long time and they're very happy, and some of them end quickly, right? Some relationships are all over the place. I know Alan Hernandez likes one house with multiple tenants. You know, we're not going to judge. You know, people, different strokes for different folks. But it works, right? So if you know going in how your deal is going to work, you're likelier to make money doing it. And that's what it's all about. If you can't figure out how to make money, you're just not doing it right. And today we're going to talk about the kinds of things that make money and the kinds of things that lose money. So when we start off with a landlord-tenant venture, it's important, just like with a marriage, that you have a prenup, right? For landlords and tenants, that is your lease. And many, many times, landlords go in, have no idea what that lease says. They sometimes buy property and say, well, mine came equipped with a lease. Ain't I lucky? I purchased property, it already had a tenant in place, and the previous landlord handed me their lease. And what they don't realize is sometimes this is a tinderbox. It's all sorts of problems that have just been passed from them over to you. If you're not using a rock-solid lease that you know, that you understand, then you've got a big problem right at the start. If you're purchasing property and there are no tenants and you're going out and seeking tenants, let me tell you, one lease can be the difference between a nightmare tenant and the best tenant on the planet. But if you don't know what makes that difference, you're likely to pick the lease that ain't gonna do the right job, and you're gonna create your own nightmare situation, all of which can be avoided if you start off with a rock-solid lease. If you don't know what that looks like, you gotta find somebody who does. You might look into a landlord attorney. What makes a great lease? Because if you can't start off with a good lease, you and your tenant kind of don't know where this thing is going. And so by establishing for the tenant very, very clearly what your expectations are, not just for the money, the rent is only a small part of that agreement. How are they supposed to treat the property? What happens when a repair is required? What happens if that rent is 5 days late or 5 months late? Have you thought about this? And that's the next phase. Just like with any marriage, problems are inevitable. And it's you go in thinking, all I do is sign the lease, hand over the keys, and I walk away, and the money just rolls into the account. Sorry, that ain't the way it works. Alan talked about it earlier with those Airbnb tenants calling in the middle of the night. If you've got multiple rentals, you can guarantee you're likely going to get a call on Thanksgiving, right? Because they're there, and when something goes wrong and grandma needs to go to the toilet and she can't, I guarantee you're getting a call and you're getting yelled at and your Thanksgiving is going to be interrupted. But if you've got a plan already in place for those exact situations, which are very predictable, you won't have to worry as much, and you won't have to run as much, and you won't have as many of your holidays ruined when things inevitably go wrong.
Landlords, as always, we welcome you to follow us on our Instagram page. If you're not a member yet, join us on Facebook. And if you enjoy what you see here, give us a thumbs up. Click that like button. We enjoy that very much. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing.
So what kinds of ways can we prepare for trouble? One of them we just heard about, insurance, right? You don't think about it often, but insurance is one of those things that landlords get wrong all the time, especially if they don't know how insurance works. They might, for example, say, you know, I'm going to buy that house, and then I'm going to move out of this house, and I'm going to rent this house and make me some cheddar cheese. And what they never do is change the insurance policy. What they own here is a home with homeowners insurance. But they ain't living in that home anymore. They have renters, different liabilities, different sorts of risks. And when things go wrong, guess what that insurer is going to say when you file your claim? Denied. And now you have to deal with trouble that could have been prevented with an adequate insurance policy. What else can you do? Well, you can anticipate that repairs are going to be needed. Even a brand new house breaks from time to time. So if you're not storing away some of that cash flow, right? If you're taking it in and going to the club because you got all this extra money lying around, you are not being wise with your investment. You have to designate some amount of the money coming in every month specifically for repairs. Yes, you're cutting away some for taxes and for insurance and for your mortgage payment, but if you're not considering repairs, you're already one step back. And I guarantee repairs are going to happen, and if you don't have the funds for them, you're going to dig out of your own pocket, and it's going to hurt, or you're going to cut corners, and it's going to hurt much more later. Also with repairs, before you need them, go and find the right people who can accomplish these repairs. That's another one where landlords get themselves in all sorts of trouble because they rush, because they have to rush. And if you're at a point where you're making a quick decision on the fly, you're likelier to make a bad one. But if you have chosen ahead of time, probably from more seasoned landlords who know a guy and know a guy and know a guy, and you've got a list, when it comes to it, you are ready. Again, inevitable things that happen all the time. When you're well prepared for them, don't hit quite as hard. So the problems happen. Some of them involve your interaction with the tenant, right? So do you have a plan in place when your tenant sets fire to the kitchen? Do you have a plan in place when your tenant left a window open and it rained right into the house and now you've got $1,500 worth of damage? What do you do with that tenant? How do you respond? Who's responsible for those repairs? What the law says is and your lease should say this, if the tenant is 100% responsible and this does not result from ordinary use or normal wear and tear, they're on the hook for those costs. And if your lease, and if you're using a good lease, it has this, if your lease has an application of funds clause, you can actually pool those repair funds from the subsequent month's rent. Say, thanks for paying that bill I sent you earlier, much appreciated, but you still owe rent. And some of you are like, oh, there's no way that's shady lawyer. It's perfectly legal, I guarantee it. And because they signed the lease, they're subject to this very thing. They owe the money, you gave them notice, they gave you money, and you applied it to their debt. The fact that they didn't pay the full amount of the debt they lawfully owe is not your problem, nor should you make it your problem. It's theirs. And the way you make money is by enforcing the terms of a good lease. You lose money when you don't know how to do that, or if you do, but you're too afraid because you don't want to be mean. Fine, but remember, it all comes with a cost. And if you're willing to pay their bills for them, you're not ready to be a landlord. Pure and simple. Sorry, I can be harsh. Okay, so very much like a marriage, sometimes these things end up in courts because it comes to a point that whatever the problems were, you couldn't reconcile them. And many times landlords can go to these courts and handle matters on their own. But I want to give you some insight about tenants. They are smart, with a capital SM. They know much more about landlord-tenant law than you have given them credit for. Many times, I have clients come into my office and say, Garcia, I don't know how this happened. I've been doing this for 20 years. And she kept telling me, well, you just take me to court. I'll see you in court. I want to present my case to the judge, and I know my rights. And Garcia, I don't know what to do. I've been waiting 4 months for the rent. That's already a problem, right? That's a landlord who doesn't know their rights, doesn't know how to stand on their lease, and doesn't know how to use the law in their favor. They're losing money month after month after month. Instead, a good landlord knows, I sometimes have to use the court to end a relationship that just doesn't work. It's unfortunate. Sometimes marriages were never meant to be, and it's important to know how those marriages end. If you don't know how to do this on your own, it's important to find somebody who can lead you down the path, help you dissolve that relationship that no longer works, because I guarantee you, the eviction process can be long, sticky, and painful unless you know how to navigate it well. Just like all of these processes, if you're going in blindfold, I guarantee you're going to trip and fall. Have somebody with you. It's not shameful to ask for help, whether it's from a fellow landlord, whether it's from a rock-solid group of realtors, or whether it's from some scummy landlord attorney. The help is out there. It's out there and it's for you, and when you grab onto it and learn from it, I guarantee you will make money. Thank you all very much. I appreciate you giving me your time. I've got cards in the back. If you want more information from me, I'm happy to talk to you. Thank you so much.